There comes a day when your spirit stops auditioning. You rise, not to prove, but to be. Let them whisper, let them watch. Your value is not up for vote. Walk like thunder wrapped in silk. When you act like you don't care, the world remembers to care more about you. It doesn't knock on closed doors hoping to be welcomed, nor does it stand in line waiting for validation. It walks in grace, knowing that the light it carries is not borrowed, not begged for, not measured in others' eyes. It is born of truth. In a world that teaches you to perform, self-worth invites you to pause. In a world that rewards loudness, self-worth whispers, "Be still and know you are enough." It is the soft armor you wear when the world hands you silence instead of praise. It is the mirror that does not lie, even when people do. The child who was once ignored, the woman who was once overlooked, the man whose voice was drowned in a room full of shouting. Each of them, once they meet their worth, begin to move differently. There's a shift, the walk steadies, the gaze lifts, the hands no longer reach where they are not held, because when you know who you are, you no longer chase who others think you should be. Self-worth is not arrogance. It is not noise. It is not dressed in gold or attention. It is the calm in the storm of opinion. It is the heart that doesn't panic when it is not chosen, because it remembers it already chose itself, and that is the beginning of a great becoming. People will try to measure you with their small rulers, with their dusty scales, but worth cannot be measured. It cannot be auctioned or traded or stolen. It cannot be dimmed by someone else's spotlight. In fact, the more you understand your worth, the more you allow others to shine too, because you are no longer competing, you are simply existing in fullness. Sometimes people will be uncomfortable with your quiet confidence. They will call you cold or proud or distant, but let them. You are not here to convince the crowd that you deserve the stage. You are the stage. You are the poem and the pen. You are the light and the flame. The ones who see you will see you. The ones who don't were never meant to. A soul that knows its worth is not desperate. It doesn't beg for texts, for apologies, for invitations. It does not settle for crumbs because it understands that it is the table. It does not chase what walks away because it understands that what is real cannot be lost, and what is lost was never real. You will walk through seasons where you are overlooked, where they clap louder for the one next to you, where you are spoken over, where your kindness is mistaken for weakness. But keep walking, keep loving, keep rising. Because self-worth does not bloom in sunlight alone. It is often born in the dark. You'll know your worth is rising when you stop explaining yourself, when you don't react to every slight, every misunderstanding, every dismissal. You'll feel the shift, not because you're numb, but because you've grown. What once would have broken you now only reminds you of how much stronger you've become. And strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is simply choosing not to go where your peace can't follow. Sometimes it's saying no with love. Sometimes it's letting someone go and still wishing them well. When you know your worth, you stop seeking applause and start building legacy. You stop measuring your reflection by what others see and begin honoring what your soul whispers in stillness. You understand that you are not the roles you play, not the jobs you lose, not the people who leave, not the love that doesn't return. You are not your rejection. You are the one who survived it. Self-worth doesn't need a stage to feel grand. It just needs room to breathe, room to be. And once it knows its name, it never forgets it again. So shine. Not because someone told you to, not because they finally saw you, but because the light was always there. You just stopped asking for permission to glow. There is a sacred silence that finds you the moment you stop performing. When your spirit grows tired of turning cartwheels just to be seen, That silence is not emptiness. It is not loneliness. It is the sound of your soul exhaling. The world is noisy, always asking, always watching, always measuring. It will tell you that you must be more, do more, give more, be louder, be shinier. But peace does not live in those demands. Peace lives in the refusal to be defined by them. You begin to know peace when you stop shaping yourself like clay in someone else's hands. You begin to know peace when you walk into a room without needing to impress it. For so long, you may have contorted, your voice adjusted, your dreams folded, your laughter measured, just to fit, just to belong, just to be enough in the eyes of people who never saw you clearly in the first place. But one day you tire of that dance. One day you decide to sit still while the music plays on. One day you realize that applause is fickle, that what they love in you today, they will question tomorrow, that the same hands clapping can one day point and turn, that performing for approval is a transaction your soul cannot afford. There is a kind of peace that finds you in authenticity, when you no longer need to wear masks to be welcome, when you no longer trim your truth to make it more palatable, when you speak not to please, but to free. It is not arrogance, it is not rebellion, it is return. A return to who you were before the world convinced you you had to audition for your worth. You don't need to decorate your value with applause. You don't need to choreograph your existence to the rhythm of public opinion. Some of the most peaceful souls are those who learn to let the world go on spinning without them. They stopped being the circus act. They stopped being the lightning bolt of constant availability, and they learned to become the sky. When you stop dancing for applause, you stop needing to explain your choices. You stop needing to justify your quiet days, your small circles, your sacred boundaries. You begin to understand that not everything needs to be shared. Not every moment needs to be liked, and not every part of you needs to be seen to be valuable. The applause is loud, yes, but it fades quickly, and chasing it leaves your spirit breathless, exhausted, unrooted. But the peace that comes when you no longer chase it, that peace is deep, that peace is still, that peace anchors you. When you stop dancing for applause, you give yourself permission to make art for art's sake, to love without performance, to grow without display. You stop hustling for identity. You stop negotiating your soul for attention. You become your own audience. You clap for yourself, not because you're proud, but because you've made it through the fire of always needing to be seen. You begin to move differently. You no longer panic when your phone is quiet. You no longer bend backward for those who only show up when you're useful. You no longer fear being misunderstood because you are no longer defined by the understanding of others. And the world may notice your stillness. It may miss the version of you that danced for its delight. It may wonder where your performance went, but let it wonder. Let it miss the noise you no longer make. Let it echo in the space you've reclaimed for your own peace. Because the truth is, peace is not passive. It is powerful. It is the kind of strength that doesn't shout. It is the kind of knowing that doesn't need permission. And once you've tasted it, once you've felt what it's like to exist without needing to be clapped for, you will never give that up again. Peace begins when the curtain falls and you're still standing, whole, unmasked, unbothered, no longer spinning for their attention, just breathing, just being, just becoming. It is the quiet art of holding without clutching, loving without chaining, caring without collapsing. It is not the absence of emotion, but the presence of balance. It is born not from bitterness, but from a sacred understanding. What is meant for you will not require you to lose yourself to keep it. You see, we are taught to believe that love must ache, that loyalty must bend, that presence must prove itself in suffering. We are praised for attachment, for holding on, for fighting to keep what was never ours to hold. But detachment, true soulful detachment, is not about giving up, but about growing up. It is about knowing when to stay and when to let go, not with anger, but with grace. It is a kind of wisdom that comes after many heartbreaks, after many nights of sleepless reaching. You begin to see that clinging does not secure anything. It only exhausts the soul. You can love deeply and still walk away when love becomes a weight instead of wings. You can care genuinely and still choose peace over chaos. That is not cruelty, that is clarity. People often confuse detachment with indifference, but they are not the same. Indifference is numbness. Detachment is presence without obsession. Indifference says, I don't care. Detachment says, I care deeply, but I will not sacrifice my soul trying to control what I cannot keep. There is a time for holding on, yes, but there is also a time for loosening your grip and trusting the wind to carry what must leave. Detachment is the wisdom that whispers, you are not responsible for every ending, nor for everyone's healing. It teaches you to honor your role without overplaying your part, to love without losing your light, to walk away without burning the bridge behind you. When you live with soulful detachment, you begin to see that peace is not found in permanence, but in presence. You stop chasing forever in every face. You learn to greet life as it is, not as you demand it to be. You begin to say, I love this moment, but I will not chain it. I cherish this person, but I will not imprison them with my expectations. And in that letting go, you find something astonishing, freedom. You find a kind of freedom that doesn't make you cold, but makes you kind. Because when you're not busy clinging, you have room to listen. When you're not desperate for outcomes, you can appreciate what is. You become less reactive, more reflective, less needy, more nourishing. Detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you start choosing what is worth your energy. You no longer pour your water into cups with holes. You no longer chase after echoes of love. You stand still and allow what is real to come, to stay, or to leave, and you remain whole regardless. It is not easy. The world will pull at your heart, demanding reaction, demanding allegiance to the chaos. But soulful wisdom will hold you steady. It will remind you that not every battle is yours. Not every storm requires your sail. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let someone learn. Sometimes the greatest gift is your distance, your silence, your space. Detachment is not the closing of the heart. It is the opening of the eyes. It is seeing clearly without needing to hold tightly. It is knowing that love is not ownership, that peace is not won through struggle, that life is not meant to be wrestled but received. There will be people who misunderstand you, who call you distant, aloof, or cold. Let them speak. Let them name what they do not yet understand. Your soul is not here to perform emotional labor for every wounded spirit you meet. Your heart is not a revolving door for people who do not know how to stay. Detachment teaches you to discern, to love without leashing, to give without draining. And in that quiet, powerful place, you begin to return to yourself. You begin to heal, not by force, not by forgetting, but by remembering. You were never meant to hold everything, just the things that feed your peace, just the people who honor your presence, just the life that welcomes you home to yourself. She does not slam the door or burn the bridge. She does not drag her dignity through the mud of revenge. She rises softly, steadily, like dawn, sure of herself, sure of her worth, sure that grace is a crown no one can take from her. Forgiveness is not always about the other. Sometimes it is the final act of loyalty to oneself. To forgive is not to forget, and it is certainly not to excuse. It is to say, I will not carry your mistake as my identity. A queen knows when something no longer feeds her spirit. And when she leaves, she does not leave bitter. She leaves better. She walks away not because she's weak, but because she's wise. She knows that staying in places where love is laced with pain is not strength. It is survival. And she's done surviving. She's here to live, to thrive, to grow in gardens where her laughter is welcome and her silence is respected. She doesn't need to prove her pain to be validated. She doesn't need to break herself to be heard. She forgives because she refuses to let the wound define her. She forgives not to invite them back in, but to set herself free. There's no power in being shackled to resentment. There's no royalty in dragging the past like a chain. A queen lays it down, not because it didn't matter, but because she matters more. When she walks with memory, but not with malice. She holds the lesson, not the grudge. She blesses the chapter for what it taught her, then turns the page. That's the kind of power you cannot fake. That's the kind of peace you cannot steal. You see, not all forgiveness is loud. Some of it happens in quiet corners of the soul. Some of it looks like choosing joy again, like dancing without the weight of betrayal on your shoulders, like speaking your truth without bitterness in your mouth, like smiling without the need to prove that you've moved on. Every queen walks away like she's already forgiven, because she knows that healing isn't about anyone else. It's about her becoming whole again. It's about taking back her story, reclaiming her name. She's been through enough storms to know when the sky is lying. She's felt enough empty promises to know when the truth is missing. She doesn't curse the rain. She just builds a stronger roof and opens the window when the sun returns. She doesn't need applause for her departure. She doesn't require witnesses to her strength. She knows what it cost her to leave with love still in her heart. That quiet kind of courage, the courage to release, to rise, to walk without hate. That's what makes her royal. Even when they expect her to be broken, she shows up whole. Even when they expect her to be silent, she sings. Even when they expect her to be bitter, she blesses. That is the miracle of a queen who has done the deep work of healing. That is the beauty of a woman who has chosen herself over the approval of those who wounded her. She's not pretending, she's not suppressing, she's not denying. She is simply no longer available for drama dressed as devotion. She knows the difference between love and obligation, between effort and sacrifice, between compromise and self-erasure. So when she walks tall, not with pride, but with peace. The kind of peace that whispers, "You owe no one your destruction." The kind of peace that sings, "You are allowed to leave even if they don't understand." The kind of peace that becomes the wind behind her back, pushing her toward brighter days. And when they speak her name, let them remember her softness. Let them remember how she could have screamed, but chose silence. How she could have shattered what broke her, but chose to mend herself instead. Let them remember that she walked away not as a victim, but as a victor, not with vengeance, but with vision. Every queen walks away like she's already forgiven, because the crown she wears is not made of gold or jewels, but of grace. It speaks when words would only unravel the truth. It holds its ground when shouting would betray your peace. In a world that rewards noise, performance, and the constant demand to explain oneself, silence becomes a sacred defiance, a calm refusal to play a game that wounds more than it wins. Not every story deserves your voice. Not every accusation needs your answer. Some truths stand so tall they don't require defending. And when your soul knows this, it grows still. Not from defeat, but from discipline. Not from fear, but from a deep, unshakable strength. Silence, when it rises from self-respect, can be thunderous. There are people who will expect your reaction because it feeds their sense of control. They will try to prod you, provoke you, twist your name in their mouth until it tastes like something ugly. But when you remain silent, you break their rhythm. You take back the stage. You remind them that your piece is not up for trade. There is power in walking away without announcing the pain. Power in choosing your own stillness over their chaos. When you don't give them the words they expect, they are left to wrestle with their own. That silence, that's not weakness, that's wisdom. The child who once had to yell to be heard, the woman who once had to beg to be seen, the man who once had to prove his value, each of them learns with time that dignity does not always raise its voice. Sometimes it just closes the door softly and does not look back. You learn that silence can be a sanctuary, a place where your thoughts realign and your heart repairs, a space untouched by opinions, undisturbed by judgment. Silence lets your soul catch its breath, lets your spirit unclench its fists. In silence, you remember who you are, not who they painted you to be. Let them wonder, let them create their own endings to the story you stopped writing for them. You owe no one a performance of your pain. You are not a monologue. You are not an apology wrapped in explanation. You are a human being, whole, sacred, evolving. And sometimes the highest form of self-respect is simply not responding. Silence doesn't mean you're afraid. It means you've outgrown the need to shout. You've outgrown the need to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. You've learned that your energy is a gift, not a guarantee, and not everyone earns access to it. There will be times when you'll be tempted to speak, to defend, to clarify. But before you do, pause. Ask yourself if your voice is needed, or if your silence will echo louder. Ask yourself if the battlefield is worth the bruises, or if the victory lies in walking away clean. Some wars are won in retreat, in choosing not to swing where peace can stand. And silence is not absence, it is presence. It is being so rooted in your worth that you no longer need to rise to every insult, respond to every wound, or return every fire. You sit not because you're passive, but because you are powerful beyond measure, and that power is not proved, it is felt. The quiet grace of dignity is often misunderstood. People will call you cold, distant, unbothered. Let them. Your truth does not need their comprehension. You are not here to be consumed. You are here to be, to heal, to evolve, to rise in silence when the noise is no longer your home. So when the moment comes and you find yourself tempted to speak just to be heard, remember this: your silence can carry more weight than any speech. Your peace is not a prop in someone else's play. Your stillness is not emptiness. It is depth. It is power. It is knowing that sometimes the loudest thing you can do is say nothing at all. Not because you've stopped feeling, but because you've started choosing. Choosing where your energy goes, where your soul rests, and who has the privilege of witnessing your presence. There is a deep, quiet power in pulling back, not as punishment, but as preservation. It is not indifference, it is discernment. For too long, many of us have given too much of ourselves to people who gave too little in return. We showed up again and again, explaining our hearts, proving our worth, offering love like it was on clearance, hoping someone would value what we couldn't yet value in ourselves. And what did the world do? It watched. It took. It applauded our effort while quietly withholding what we needed most. Care that was mutual, effort that was equal, love that didn't ask us to shrink. But one day, something shifts. Not suddenly, not loudly, but inevitably. You get tired of being the only one who calls first. Tired of explaining why you're hurt. Tired of being the dependable one who gets taken for granted. And so you do the unexpected. You stop. You stop pouring. You stop explaining. You stop showing up where your presence is no longer honored. And when you do that, when you act like you don't care, the world stumbles. It starts to notice what had always been right in front of it. Because people are funny like that. They often don't see your light until you stop illuminating their path. They don't realize the warmth you brought until the room turns cold. But that's not your burden to carry. Acting like you don't care isn't about becoming hard. It's about becoming whole. It's about learning that your value doesn't increase just because you try harder. You don't become more lovable by begging for love. You don't become more worthy by staying in places that constantly question your worth. You begin to move with silence, with grace, with absence that speaks louder than any words. You show not with speeches, but with space. And that space, that silence, that sudden quiet from the one who always filled the room with care, that becomes the loudest reminder of all. When you stop reacting, stop chasing, stop asking, those who truly care begin to reveal themselves. Not because you forced their hand, but because your stillness exposed their absence. And those who never did care, they drift away, just like dead leaves in wind. Let them. Not everyone is meant to go where you're growing. People confuse availability with weakness. They think kindness means you'll never walk away, but when you act like you don't care, they are forced to reckon with your boundaries. They come to understand that love is not a leash and care is not compliance, that your silence is not surrender, it is sovereignty. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to beg to be valued. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is withdraw your attention, your effort, your time, not out of anger, but out of deep-rooted self-respect. You become the calm center in a room full of noise, and in that stillness, truth rises. Let them wonder. Let them talk. Let them realize what they lost when they thought you'd never leave. You are not responsible for awakening others to your worth. Your only job is to walk in it. And when you do, when you walk like you've already forgiven, already healed, already moved on, the world pays attention.